Yo, what up YouTube? Today we're bringing you my long-awaited settings video. Let's hop right into it, boys. Alright, so first, we have interact prompt style compact. That's just to take up less space on your screen. Button hints. I only have these on so people know that I'm on controller. It doesn't really matter. Crosshair damage feedback. This is pretty much just preference, like when you're shooting at someone. The X will pop up. I don't know where the shield icon's at. I feel like I never even see that, but I have it turned on. I just leave it turned on. I think the X is actually pretty nice when you're shooting people. Damage numbers, definitely want that on stacking because you want to have like the most concise damage info when you shoot someone. Ping opacity faded. Yeah, definitely leave that on faded because it just basically makes stuff easier to see on your screen when you can see through pings. Obituaries, these don't matter. Mini-map rotation. This is preference. Some pros leave it on, some pros leave it off. I prefer having it off. It does not matter at all. Weapon auto cycle on empty. I turn that off because it's kind of annoying to have the game cycling on its own. Like I wanna have complete control over when my weapon cycles. And so when an auto cycles on empty, that's pretty frustrating. So I leave that off. Auto sprint, I have that on because it's a little bit more responsive than having to manually press sprint. It takes like less brain power to just like be able to automatically sprint everywhere. And it frees up another button on your button layout, which I'll talk about later. Delta tap sprint. I've never even used. I don't really know what this does. I just leave it off. Jetpack control. I would definitely recommend leaving your jetpack control on hold. If you don't know what this is for Valkyrie. So on hold, you only have to press your thumbstick down once to turn your jetpack on and off. But if you have it on toggle, you have to press it twice. Once to turn it on and once to turn it off. So if you leave it on hold, it's basically half the button presses, albeit your button presses are a little bit longer. I think it's definitely worth it, and you would notice a difference if you've played Valkyrie a little bit. Like, it's just way more responsive, and you can burst it way easier, like this. Incoming damage feedback. I have this on 2D, 3D. Honestly, though, I don't really notice it in game. It probably doesn't matter if you don't like it. It's pretty much probably a preference. Taking damage closes the death box on crafting menu or crafting menu. Definitely want that off. You don't want to be getting shot out of a menu when you're looting an armor swap. You 100% want to do that off. Hop up, pop up. I don't even know what this does. I leave it off. A lot of this stuff doesn't really matter, like, at all. It's just, like, preference. Streamer mode, don't worry about that if you're not a streamer. Anonymous mode, usage sharing. None of this really matters. Performance display doesn't matter. Reticle. So, it says default. I have a custom reticle. I use a green one. And this is, like, totally preference. I like using green. My teammate, Hal, uses one of those weird, like, inverted reticles, where it's, like, glow in the, or, I don't know how to describe it. It's, like, glow in the dark, almost. It's, like, black with a glow in the dark edge, the light green edge. You can do whatever you want with these. If you, like, for reticle, I would definitely look up some, reticles on Google, or just YouTube, or whatever, and just pick whatever one you think looks the coolest, or whatever one you think will be the most easy to see. For accessibility, none of this stuff matters. This is all personal preference. Don't use mouse and keyboard. Alright, for the button layout, so I use a customized button layout. So I have a default, currently at the time of this video, I'm using a default Xbox Series X controller. No paddles on the back, no modifications, just a default controller. So I don't play claw either, and to make up for not playing claw and not using paddles, I use a unique button layout. And the whole purpose of this is like so I don't have to take my right thumb off my right thumbstick while I'm playing, so I can always be aiming while I'm like jumping, crouching, weapon swapping, using my tactical, all while you're looking around at the same time, like multitasking. And to do that, I have my jump on right thumbstick, my crouch on left trigger. Might be wondering why I have that on left trigger. I'll talk about it in a second. Cycle weapon / holster. I have that on left thumbstick. So because I use auto sprint, my left thumbstick is a free button since I don't have to press that to sprint anymore. So I put cycle weapon on my left thumbstick so I can look around while cycling weapons, which is pretty nice. And then for sprint, I have it on Y because I don't ever use my sprint button anymore because I use auto sprint, so that literally doesn't matter. So I just put that on like a button that I don't like touching. And then for ADSing and attacking, I use bumpers instead of the triggers. And the reason why is because bumpers are a little bit more responsive. Like for a trigger, like it requires like more pressure, I think, to press your trigger down over and over again. And it's like you don't hear like a nice little click when you press your triggers, and it's just like it's not as responsive, you know. It's like you press your bumper down, it's either on or off. But when you press your trigger down, like you can press it 10%, 20%, 30%, 50%, and like it'll be different every time you press it because you can't control your finger like that precisely. But with the bumper, it's either on or off. And, like it's really easy to shoot with bumpers and instead of triggers, in my opinion. So it's a little bit more responsive. And the reason why I initially swapped them is because I saw that COD pros, like Call of Duty pros, like I guess maybe Warzone pros too. I don't know. I haven't really watched too much Warzone, but they all shoot with their bumpers. So I basically just copied them and used their same logic to explain why I'm using it. For tactical, I have that on right trigger. It's just another accessible button that I can use while aiming. Pings, I had that on A. So pings, I feel like pings aren't as important as jumping, crouching, or tactical. So I put that on A. So I actually do have to take my thumb off my thumbstick to ping. So I can't look around while I'm pinging, which is kind of annoying, but I mean, hasn't really bothered me. And melee, I have that on B. I rarely ever melee in this game, especially after the melee nerf. Like melee is not super strong, so like I wouldn't worry too much about where your melee button is. But yeah, I just leave that on B. And yeah, that's the button layout. The whole point is just to the whole point of the button layout is to replace paddles and playing claw. You get the same benefits of paddles and claw without actually having either. Alright, so the rest of my controller settings, we got stick layout, default, interact / reload button. Definitely want that on tap. If you have it on hold, it just takes longer, so there's no point in doing that. Crouch button, I recommend hold. Basically, it's the exact same logic as the jetpack. The jetpack being on hold. Like, it just takes half as much button presses to crouch up and down fully. So it's way easier to crouch spam, in my opinion. And crouch spamming is definitely really important in this game when you're fighting up close. Or you're just trying to dodge shots, or, you know, just maybe like quick peek with the shotgun like this. Yeah, I'll definitely recommend hold for crouch. There are some pros that use it on toggle, but I think they're making a mistake. Toggle slot button, definitely want that on. Trigger dead zones, I have that on none. You definitely want that on none. You want that on none as long as your triggers aren't like broken or anything. Like as long as they don't accidentally press for no reason. I'll definitely put that on none because it just makes your triggers a little bit more responsive. Takes less pressure to activate them. Menu cursor speed, you want this like anywhere around the middle is fine. It's kind of preference. I would not leave it on the lower end because your armor swapping is going to be too slow, and it's definitely possible to leave it kind of high and still have consistent armor swaps. So I would definitely recommend to have that like just somewhere around the middle. It's probably fine. And then for movement / aiming. So right now, for the past couple days, I've been trying out ALC, but I haven't been using ALC my entire career. I've always been on 4-4. So I've been using 4-4 forever. 4-4 is kind of like the godsend, in my opinion. Like pretty much any skill level can use it at like an elite level, in my opinion. It's really easy to use. I haven't used it in a while, so my aim's gonna be a little rusty on it right now. But I would definitely recommend 4-4 for anyone who plays this game casually or like even at a high level. It's definitely like the best like all-around sensitivity in my opinion. And at a later date, I'll go over some ALCs, but right now I'm testing them out, so I don't have anything that I'm set on. Per optic, I always use 5 on 3 axis and above, and that's because, like, trying to control the recoil on a flat line or something, on 4, it's just too slow, like, it's too sluggish, and since you're so zoomed in, like, having it on 5 isn't that big of a deal. I always felt like keeping it on 5, it's still pretty easy to, like, maintain precision while having it on 5, and you can, like, control recoil and whatnot. So I definitely recommend 5 and above for your per optic. I mean 5 on your 3 axis and above for per optics. Response curve classic. I think classic's definitely the best if you're not using ALC. Like I would definitely recommend leaving this on classic. Some people use linear, but I still think classic is the way to go. Unless you're doing ALC, then you can try linear. Look dead zone, definitely want that on none. Unless you have a completely busted controller, like leaving it on no dead zone should be fine. Like even if you have a slight amount of stick drift, like let's say you have like this much stick drift, just barely turning, you should just try and control it. And I wouldn't worry about that much. Like if you have more, okay, if stick drift is a problem for you while you're not on ALC, then you definitely need a new controller because it shouldn't be that bad. I would just go pick up like another default controller or whatever. Movement dead zone, definitely want that on small. Inverted look, some freaks use this. I don't think it's a necessity at all. Some people like to use it, but I don't know how you'd ever get used to using that. Vibration, definitely want that off. It drains your controller battery, shakes your hands around, don't want that. For video, I don't understand the science behind it, like any of this stuff really, but I just leave it on full screen, 16:9, 1920, 1080. Brightness preference, field of view. I leave that at 110, but honestly, anything between 90 and 110 is fine. I wouldn't go below 90. There's pros that play on 90. I don't know if anyone who plays below 90, but yeah, anywhere between 90 and 110 is like totally fine. FOV ability scaling, definitely want that disabled. Just makes your game your screen a little bit more consistent. It's like when you're octane stemmed. When you have that enabled, your octane stem will increase your FOV, but when it's disabled, it doesn't increase your FOV, so it's more consistent. Definitely leave that disabled. Sprint view shake, same logic as FOV ability scaling. It just makes your game a little bit more consistent. Like you're not shaking around when you're sprinting. Definitely want that on minimal. Now I don't really understand the science behind it, like the advanced settings, but all I know is that you want pretty much everything turned down as low as possible because it increases your FPS, and having high FPS reduces input lag and makes it easier to aim. So if you're trying to play competitive, I would definitely put all this stuff on very low. I had this turned up slightly because this is what makes your skins look good. So like, this just makes me, you know, enjoy my skins a little bit more. You can actually see the details. For NVIDIA Reflex, I use Enabled plus Boost. I would definitely use Enabled plus Boost. It's supposed to give you less input lag, so I would turn that on. But yeah, just max low everything. And then audio is all preference. Like a lot of pros play with dialogue on. I play with it off, but it's just preference. Doesn't really matter. I play with a lot of sounds off just because I play the game so much. So like, in my opinion, having less sound makes it easier to play for longer periods of time. But yeah, that's pretty much everything, boys. Pretty simple stuff. Like no crazy explanations other than the button layout, I would say. Let me know if you guys have any questions down below, and I will try and respond to your comments as soon as I can. And I hope you all enjoyed the settings video. I'll try and get you guys an ALC video as soon as I figure out my sense. But I'll see you boys later.